Don't you just love when a paycheck comes in and you have some relief so you can go buy a new video game and get some new clothes, or the honey barbecue chicken wings you definitely can't go wrong with? That is until you realize the bank account's not so good anymore. And now you need gas, you have to pay off your student loans, and don't even mention that dang credit card. The data shows that 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, where roughly 61% of Americans are in credit card debt, and 44% of Americans can't even pay an unexpected $1,000 emergency expense. The biggest concern here is understanding where you are placing your money, because money is a finite resource, and depending on how you utilize it, it could roll you in a deeper and deeper hole, or you could build a growing machine that can continuously make money for you without you having to even work. So this is the optimal order you need to take with every paycheck, with the first thing being your absolute needs that you cannot live without. I'm not saying the new Xbox or PlayStation, I'm talking about things like housing, utilities, transportation, insurance, many different things like that you actually need. And understanding the difference is crucial, because when I say transportation, I'm not talking about getting a loan for a brand new sports car. All in all, the areas that are considered needs combined should be under 50% of your income that you receive after taxes. So let's say it's $4,000. Do everything you can to keep your needs under $2,000 and you'd be off for a great start. And yes, prices are skyrocketing and this may seem impossible, but consider downgrading your apartment or a vehicle, or anything else that you notice can be adjusted. It might seem annoying, but even $200 saved every month by doing this would allow you to have an extra $2,400 after a year. That's great. You now have more money that you can go on a shopping spree. Not quite. You see, if you were to do this and you had more money to actually use, our human nature tends to see that and want to actually use it. In fact, Parkinson's second law shows that a person will increase their spending on something if the income also increases. That right there is why your mindset is the #1 driver toward your wealth. And what I've noticed in some of the most successful people in life, not just financial wealth, is the power of discipline. With that noted, let's now go to priority number 2 to do with your paycheck, and that is to pay off any high debt interest payments that you have. Many people would argue to save your money first and put it in an emergency savings account, which I'll cover shortly. But the truth is, if you have anything like credit card debt, the interest you could be charged is anywhere from 15 to 30%. What that means is you are guaranteed to lose a lot of money, and it's just going to get significantly worse if you don't pay it off. And because this is a guaranteed loss of money and a really bad habit to get into, even if you came up with an emergency and you didn't have an emergency fund, you'd probably put it into the credit card. So the way I view it is that someone's getting a guaranteed 15 to 30% return, which is better than anything you could get guaranteed in the stock market. And this is exactly how the banks make so much of their money. So if you have high interest debt, statistically it is best to pay that off as soon as possible, instead of having any cash that you have sit in a bank account earning you nothing. To visually explain this, let's just say that you had $6,000 of credit card debt at a 30% interest rate. If you paid $250 per month to pay this off, it would take you 3 years, and the total interest that would have accumulated over that time would be over $3,000, which is just the money that you're pretty much giving to the bank because you had to borrow from them. Where if you were to have your cash in a high yield savings account, let's just say over time you get a 2% yield, from $300 a month for 3 years, the total interest you would have made is only $340. That just shows you how much more you'd have to pay if you were in credit card debt, so I would really recommend trying to do everything you can to pay it off. And if you're trying to tackle credit card debt, there are 2 strategies, with the first one being an avalanche method, which to do this, you're pretty much just paying off the highest interest amount first. So let's say you have 3 credit cards and the highest one is 29% and the ones after are 19% and then 16%. Because the 29% is the highest one that's making you pay the most amount of interest on the payments that you owe, pay off the highest amount that you possibly can to get that done with while reaching the minimum payments on the other credit cards. And then once you're done with that highest one, continue down the list to the 19 and then 16% until you can fully pay them all off. But if you are one that likes to see quicker progress, you could take a debt snowball method, which pretty much means you're going to get rid of the lowest balances first because they would be the easier ones to remove. Psychologically, this may feel like the best decision, but financially it would not be, because you're allowing your other balances with higher interest to continuously charge more interest to you. But either method you take, to emphasize how important it is to pay off your credit card debt, if you have $15,000 in debt at a 30% interest rate, that means every day you're being charged an additional $12 for doing nothing but living. And if you don't pay off any of that, that means that after a full year, you would be charged $4,500. All in all, by paying off your high interest debt first, you're going to realize from the Parkinson's second law that you don't actually have as much money as you thought, so you got to get rid of this before you do anything else. So now that you know how important it is to pay off your high interest debt, moving on to the priority number 3 is to have an emergency fund. Like I said, 44% of Americans can't pay off a $1,000 emergency expense. So by having an emergency fund, the general rule is to build it up to cover 3 to 6 months of living expenses. If you're in the process of paying off high interest debt, you could consider having some in an emergency fund, but just know in the back of your head that the credit card debt, any other high interest debt, has to go. So with an emergency fund, this is pretty much a safe haven in case of anything unexpected, like a medical emergency, car repair, home repairs, a job loss, and my favorite is just to have a peace of mind financially going forward. Let's just say from the previous example that $2,000 were your monthly minimum needs to survive, you would need at least $6,000 to $12,000 in a high yield savings account where the money in that account can at least earn some interest, which I'll cover more on later in the video. But the biggest reason why I mention that is because if your savings are in a traditional account like Chase or Bank of America, your money is going to earn you a 0.01% of interest, which is nothing. This is another way that banks make their money because they're going to use that money that you have in the account, which they require you to have a certain amount in the account, and then they're going to use it to go make them a lot more money. For example, my Chase account, you need $300 in the account to avoid a fee, and for Wells Fargo, it's $1,000. But with a high yield savings account like SoFi, you don't have any fee. But in regards to an emergency fund, I will say though that if you're more on the risky lifestyle, say you're self-employed or you have a family with kids, you may want to be more on the safer side with an emergency fund, so I would lean towards 6 months or more. Now, understanding exactly how to allocate toward your emergency fund to build this up is going to depend completely on your position, but all I'm going to say is the sooner you can get that done, the better. Alright, so now after mastering these areas, you're going to now have a peace of mind to be able to put some of your money into investments where you could have your money work for you instead of against you. And at this point, you can definitely go and pick up the honey barbecue chicken wings. But moving on from there, priority number 4 is going to be to take advantage of retirement accounts. Although this may seem boring and you'd rather put your money elsewhere, many of the retirement accounts actually provide great benefits, and it's going to give you such a higher chance to actually retire successfully. Let's just say you're 20 and you invest into a stock market index fund averaging an 8% return and you invest $300 a month. That means by the time you're 60, you will have close to $1 million. That right there is the power of compound interest, because as you invest money, you're allowing your money to make you more and more money over time. Where if you were 30, in order to achieve this goal, you would have to invest $700 a month. And if you're 40, you'd have to invest $1,800 a month, where if you're 50, it would be $6,000 a month to reach $1 million by age 60. No matter your age, you have to start investing as soon as you're in a good financial position to actually do so. And like I said, you can get great retirement benefits from accounts like a Roth IRA, 401k, and even HSA. For example, with a Roth IRA, the money you contribute into this account is going to already be taxed, but the incentive is that the money in the account you can invest, where the earnings at any point after retirement, which is age 59 and a half, can be withdrawn tax-free even if it is dividend income. With these accounts, there are contribution limits, and with a Roth IRA, you're going to be limited to $7,000 to contribute in the year of 2024, and if you're over 50, you can do an extra $1,000. A simple calculation just to exaggerate the benefits of doing this: if you were 20 and invested $583 a month into your Roth IRA and achieved the average stock market return, you would have close to $2 million completely tax-free. Or if you did what I showed you in the previous example with $300 a month, that could be $1 million completely tax-free. The difference of using a Roth IRA compared to just a traditional investing account could literally save you hundreds of thousands of dollars from taxes. Another option you could take advantage of is a 401k, where if you're self-employed, you could also utilize a solo 401k or an SEP IRA. These traditional accounts allow you to avoid taxes up front, allow you to grow your investments without paying any taxes throughout the years, but on the back end, you are going to have to pay taxes. A benefit with this though is the contribution you put in is pre-tax, so that is actually going to reduce the amount of taxes you're going to pay in the given year. Not just that, but many employers offer a 401k match, which means they'll contribute up to a certain amount of money that is matched with what you contribute into your account, and this is pretty much just free money. For example, let's say you have a $60,000 salary and your company offers a 4% match with your 401k if you contribute 4%. That means if you accepted this, 4% of your salary is $2,400, and that means the company would also match that by contributing an additional $2,400 after a full year. But just know that this typically isn't a one-time a year payment. This is going to come throughout the entire year as your paychecks are contributing to your 401k. Another thing to mention is if your employer offers a Roth 401k, that means that you would be able to put in after-tax money. You would pay the money up front in taxes, in that year, but you would allow it to grow and be able to withdraw at retirement completely tax-free. I personally love this approach because you're going to be growing investments, and as they grow, that's going to be a lot more money in the end that you can avoid taxes on. Besides that, another option that is completely underrated, and if you can use it, I highly recommend you do, that is an HSA. So an HSA actually has a triple tax break, meaning the money you put into the account is first off not going to be taxed. It's pre-tax money, which is going to help you reduce your taxes in the current year. Then you can actually invest into the account. You can put whatever you want. You can invest in mutual funds, and you can grow the investments completely tax-free, where on the end, you can withdraw completely tax-free. But the thing is, you have to use this for qualified medical expenses, but you get tax advantage on the front, middle, and back end, which is extremely beneficial. Now, when I say medical expenses, this can be used for any doctor's appointments, prescriptions, and pretty much anything that's medically related. And the way I like to view this account is a health retirement investing account. If you can use this account, I highly recommend it, and the contribution limits right now for it, if you're an individual, would be $4,150, and for a family, that will be $8,300. Which if you're over 55, you can also contribute an extra $1,000, and this is different from the Roth IRA that the rule is at 50. If you can fulfill this criteria and understand how you can take advantage of the account, you're going to be in great shape going forward into the priority number 5, that is personal investments. When I say personal investments, I don't mean to put all the money into brand new shoes, but more so to put the money into places that can help you grow. Whether that be for sports, maybe you want to earn a college scholarship, or you want to start your own side business, or maybe you just want to stay fit and healthy and you want to go out and do things, get a gym membership, build relationships and network with people, spend the money to do so. If you are interested to grow your skill set, you could spend money in areas that could significantly help you grow and be much quicker, and then you can leverage your skills to actually go out and earn higher income. I highly recommend, if you are looking to improve your financial position, that you look into that, or you even start a side business of yours. It could even be online, but find something that you enjoy, because you'll be able to do it much better and be extremely motivated to do it. But you have to understand that spending money in this area does not mean it can be the rest of your money. You have priority number 6, that's going to be to pay off the rest of your debt payments. This is extremely important to understand because you may have loans like auto loans or student loans that have a solid interest rate to them that you have to pay off, and the sooner you can get that paid off, the better. If you have any loans that are charging over a 7% interest, you really want to get that done as soon as you possibly can, because you could be investing in the stock market and getting over time 8% and above. But let's say instead of it being on a short-term loan, you actually have this for a mortgage and it's a really high interest rate. What you should do is wait until there's a good time where rates are low and refinance the loan. Ideally with the mortgage, you'd want that to be under 4% and to be able to pay off the lowest amount that you possibly can, so ideally a 30-year loan. But for everything else like an auto or student loan and many others that are short-term, you want to really try to pay these off, because let's say you have $60,000 in student loans at an 8% rate. If you paid $500 per month, it would take you 20 years to officially pay it all off, and that would result in a total of $61,000 of interest. That's a ton of extra money that you have to pay just for getting the loan. So what I would recommend is to try to find a way to add even $300 a month toward the payments, because you'd be able to pay it off in 8 years and would only result in a total amount of $23,000 instead. So obviously that's not ideal, but that's how the system's made, and if you can potentially pay off an extra $300 a month, that would save you $38,000 from interest and 12 years of your time where you could put the money in much better areas. I think at this point in the video, you understand that paying off your bad debt is extremely important, and it's going to allow you to open up more opportunities for financial freedom, which is why I create the content I do on this channel. So if you like it, don't forget to hit the like button on this video and subscribe with notifications on for future content like this. Moving on from there, priority number 7 is going to be your financial goals. Now you go through all this work to pay off your debt, build an emergency fund, and invest into all these retirement accounts, but what about your current goals? One of the accounts you could pursue is simply starting a taxable brokerage account where you could be investing into securities on the market. This is really cool because you could get into traditional index funds for the long term, you could buy individual companies that you may really like and believe in, or you could get qualified dividends where they're taxed at the long-term capital gains rate, where you might want to try to build a dividend income portfolio. Besides that, if you're trying to build up a college fund, you could use a 529 account, which will allow you to take tax advantages when you are using this for educational purposes. In fact, as long as the money's in the account, no income taxes will be due on earnings, and when you take out the money for educational expenses, the withdrawals may be federal income tax free in many cases and free of state tax too. Another thing that can help you reach financial goals is using a high yield savings account where you can set up automatic transfers into different savings buckets where you can see exactly what you're trying to save for. For example, the high yield savings account that I use is SoFi, where they have vaults where you can put your money into different categories that can still earn the interest, but that can be separated, like an emergency fund, a vacation, future wedding, down payment for a house, or any of these goals that you want to build some interest, see your targets, see where you're at currently, and still be able to go forward with. The only thing I'll mention about SoFi, in order to get their higher yield, you must set up a direct deposit with an employer. But the neat thing to me about putting your money into this as a deposit is that it's pretty much going to feel like a primary bank. Instead of ones that earn you no interest, you can actually earn interest on here and set up automatic transfers to go to the different vaults like I mentioned. And yet alone, if you sign up and make your first direct deposit, you can get up to a $325 cash bonus when you use the link I have in the description below. And if you're interested to learn more about high yield savings accounts before making any actions, I highly recommend you check out the videos I have linked in the description below. With that said, you now have everything under control, you understand your financial position, and in the back of your head, you're not having any more financial stress to now go out to priority number 8, that is to spend money on things you enjoy. So going over everything I mentioned so far in this video, with the ideal scenario of $4,000 a month after tax income, that means that you should keep your needs under $2,000 a month. And remember, that's like housing, utilities, transportation, insurance, and other necessities like groceries. And then after that, you should then prioritize the credit card debt as a required must pay off as soon as possible. Where after that, you can then start saving up for an emergency fund that should cover 3 to 6 months of living expenses. So work toward that $6,000 to $12,000 mark. And then once that's set up, you can get on the routine of contributing 20% of your income toward your retirement accounts, so that's $800 a month, and then you can invest $200 into yourself with the goal of increasing your income over time. You would then have $300 in other debt that you'd have to pay off. That will leave you with $700 to put into any of your wants, which would consist of things like entertainment, traveling, or the new clothes that you really wanted. And don't forget the honey barbecue chicken wings. So this is just a generic guideline, but I will say if you are one in a tough situation, I would highly recommend looking for a side hustle or some sort of business you can start that you enjoy. I'm going to leave other relevant content I think you could greatly benefit from in the description below. And if you're interested in getting a high yield savings account, consider checking out SoFi, where you can get the $325 cash bonus, which is the one I use. And as always, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notifications button for future content like this.